sometimes I read papers or articles, or videos or presentations like the 6 things to do to get to an experimentation culture. And this person is absolutely right. I'm really happy this person shares her or his ideas about this situation. And I'm sure it worked for them. But every situation is different. Every company is different. Every market is different. Every country is different. Every culture is different.
Welcome to another episode of Experimentation's podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Bomford, and today I'm going to I'm a big fan of this guy. His name is Ruben, and I have learned a lot of things when I was going through his Udemy course. And I'm just stoked to be able to have this conversation and that opportunity to finally speak to that person who is presenting everything in that in the small screen. So welcome, Ruben.
Thank you for having me. Wonderful to be here.
Awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself and probably your background and how you led into experimentation in your career?
Oh, that's a big story.
Yeah.
Let me start with
We're here
introducing
for
myself.
it.
Yeah. So my name is Ruben. I now work as a lead consultant at the agency Online Dialogue, and I have my own company, Conversion Ideas, with the goal to help people learn and excel in conversion rate optimization and experimentation for affordable prices. One of the main products are my online courses, which sell through Udemy. I've been in this business for 15 years. It basically started with, well, first of all, I was always better at data than for instance, languages at school. I've always been result driven, and I have a high interest in psychology and human behavior.
Nice.
And that kind of led me into conversion rate optimization. And from a career in conversion rate optimization, I still have that passion to make an impact, to drive results, to make measurable results and human behavior. But it also shifted now from not just digital products, but also to through organizations. How can we involve colleagues? How can you motivate colleagues to work more data, customer centric, and experiment driven?
That's amazing. That's a very short version of your career. So just wanted to know, like, the types of organizations that you work with, like, do they range from different industries?
Yeah, absolutely. Mainly based in the Netherlands, but also some international companies as well. I now work for a very big publishing company. I work for the Dutch railway stations. I work for a very big e-commerce website in the Netherlands. So it's very different, which makes it fun. And it's not just the client who's different, also, of course, the questions we get. If
Nice.
I see, like 5 years ago, I was mainly working with e-commerce managers, marketing managers. But now I'm also very active on the product side. So I now have some
That's
marketing and
amazing.
a lot of product teams.
That's amazing. Because there's a lot of things that the question, Ruben, is like, why do you think experimentation is crucial? Yeah, how would you define experimentation? Why is it crucial for developing strategies within, like, organizations that you work with?
Well, we suck at making decisions, right?
Yeah,
We humans
yeah.
think we are very good at making decisions and being able to estimate the impact of those decisions. But if you look, well, in our work, we see it, of course, very often that you think an experiment is going to win, and you even want to place a bet on it. But when you
That's
check the
true.
results, it's not a winner. And it's
Yeah.
not just in our line of work, right? If you look at lots of scientific papers, you will see that in many professions, people love to guess, to estimate something, to make a decision, but the outcome is very different than we expected. So, with experimentation, with A/B testing, we make better decisions, hopefully, to make better products for happier and healthier lives.
Yeah, I agree with that, because sometimes that happens to myself too. And I agree that sometimes, like, it's a bit subjective, and when you see the numbers, you're like, oh, I was proven wrong. And that's the fun of experimentation. You just don't know what you're gonna get, I guess.
Absolutely, stay curious and be willing to experiment. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So what we're going to talk about today is more of like how we're going to integrate those insights that we've learned from experimentation to different aspects of the company, right? And I think like I would want to know how that looks
Mm-hmm.
like how the process is step by step, and how you influence like different people within, different, you have your product, you have your marketing, you have, your clients, like actual decision makers. Now, how does that look like?
I think the most important and short advice is to use the same philosophy, the same mindset as we do with our digital users. So when you look at our work and the standard zero process, we start with thorough research, right? We do all kinds of user research, do all kinds of data research, heat maps, and some, and I can highly recommend, do also scientific research. We get
Mm.
all these insights from our digital users, and then we create from those insights, we create test ideas, we create hypotheses, we A/B test them, given you have enough traffic, otherwise other experiments, but we test our test ideas and hypotheses, see if they're correct, learn from it, and reiterate and do it over again. And we do this as much as possible. We try to test as
Mm.
much as possible to fully align our digital products with the needs and motivations of our digital users.
Hi, this is Romo Santiago from Experimentation. If you'd like to connect with hundreds of experimenters from around the world, consider joining our Slack channel. You can find the link in the description. Now back to the episode.
And then when we look in the organization, we just
Yeah.
start sending a B test email after a B test email, or we present result after result, and we never wonder like, is this useful for our colleagues?
Agree. Yeah.
Does this match their needs? Does this match their motivations? Does it help them in their work? Let alone, do they even open the email? Do they read the email, or do they read all our Slack messages with test results? Well, on our websites, we are very curious and eager to learn more and more about our users. We forget to do that often within our organizations. And I
That's very
think we have
true.
to use the same mindset, the same principles as we do with our digital users. Start talking to your colleagues, to your stakeholders, and fully understand what drives them, what are their needs, what are their goals, what are their struggles, what are their obstacles, and really try to understand how you can help them with your experiments, and ask them how they want to be involved, and how they want to see results or stay up to date. So start with like colleague research, whereas you would do user research on your website. Start with colleague research, and
Calling
from there
research.
adjust your approach, and also
Mm.
learn what works and what doesn't work within your organization.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you try to understand their psychology as well, to be able to explain better how to integrate the results of your experiments to that specific colleague. Is that kind of like what you're trying to say?
Yeah, both ways. So how can you use experiments to help them achieve their goals and overcome their obstacles and struggles? And when you did those experiments to help them, how can you best share those results, and how will they start using your insights in their work, and how will you help them achieve their goals indeed? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder like how that looks like on a real life example. Do you have like a certain real life example, so our listeners would be able to like picture it on
Yeah.
a real life scenario? Yeah.
So when I start with a client, and of course I'm the lead, I lead multidisciplinary teams. I mainly let them do the research for digital users, and while they are doing all the research to understand digital users, build a test, their backlog and hypotheses, I do the research within the company. I start talking to product owners, stakeholders, managers, but also of course those CRO specialists or experimentation champions themselves.
Mm.
I started
Mm.
doing a big scan of the whole organization to understand, well, the obstacles we can face with experimentation, what the needs are. I basically do a big research, lots of interviews. I can do surveys within the organization to learn the maturity of experimentation and the needs for experimentation in different departments and in different
Mm.
teams, and they can be very, very different. From there, I create a strategic document and a plan how to best help what team, what their needs are, and how to
That's
involve
smart.
them.
Yeah. Mm.
And then, of course, it's still experimentation. Of course, we don't have the big numbers like A/B tests, but generally, in my stand up, I do reflect stand ups at the end. I do reflect a few minutes, like, hey, how are we involving colleagues, and is this going well? So, for instance, it's very easy to create some sort of form, a Google form, an Airtable form, to collect test ideas. But when no one uses that form, you can wonder like, okay, should we continue with it or should we stop it? And
Mm.
when we continue with it, like, how are we going to do this? What worked for some clients is we had like a huge, big idea competition where we had like big
Oh, that's
prizes,
interesting.
and we could have people use the form, get used to using the form, and they could win individual prizes or team prizes. And of course, when they hand in their test ideas and it turns out to be a good winner, a nice winner, we bring them a cake.
Oh,
Not to
that's
teach them that
interesting.
it's all about winners, but it's to show them like, hey, we're doing something with your idea, and here's a big cake you can share with the department so it stays top of mind. For another client, and this is an idea I got from Anna Marie from Photo van Ziggo, we placed a big feedback button on the website targeted to the IP address of that office. And
Oh,
then
wow.
people really started using it because they saw the big feedback button. And when they click on it, they went to the form, in this case, an Airtable form, and we received lots of ideas, lots of bug fixes from the people at the office. So again, it's not just showing a link to a form; it's continuously experiment and see how it can work within the organization. Same for
That's
presenting A/B test results. After you present A/B test results, a little bit later, do ask people, was it useful? Did you use it? How should I
mm.
change it? Yeah, keep trying and keep finding feedback on how you involve others, how you share with others.
I actually like your ideas because it's not just you drop it and then you go, like, you guys go with whatever idea, like that's the result, you
Yeah.
go with it, or this is like, I kind of like that you have practical. And I think like what I've like when I was watching your Udemy, you would
Mm.
say, here's a principle and here's like a practical solution. And I think that's one of those reasons that I kind of like, oh, this Ruben guy is really good. But anyway, in terms of like, so you're in your organization. Do you have like, because you've mentioned there are people who it's kind of like creating a certain habit so that they get used to that habit and get awarded for it. It's kind of like a 30-day free trial, then it forms a habit, and then they, just give you my money, I kind some kind of thing. Uh, but how has this influenced, like, what are the changes that you've seen after you've implemented those practical solutions within the organizations? Like, how was the organization? Were they more like receiving, or they're like, oh, I'm glad that you're giving me this feedback, instead of just like, okay, thanks for the feedback and leave it alone? What are those changes that you've seen, that your organization has gone through?
Yeah, good question. Of course, yeah, with the form field, it's easier because you get more and more test ideas. But of course, what I generally do is a maturity scan, like once a year, for instance, or once every 6 months to see if it progresses. And of course, it's still very difficult. It's not easy, and you do need higher management to grow in experimentation. For instance, when you could try really hard with the team, but as long as the team is output driven, it's
Mm,
gonna really really challenging, because what happens there is that the manager or a higher manager demands the team to release stuff on the website, new features, or use all sprint points to build this new product. And the product owner, yeah, she or he listens to the boss and does
of
so.
course, yeah.
And the product owner does not have any sprint points for A/B test, for instance. Or if he does, and you start testing and you find out that 30% of the A/B test is a winner, so you can now only release 30% of the features, um, while his goal is to release 100% of the features. He's gonna
Mm,
miss his applause, his bonus at the end of the year, and his
yeah,
boss is not gonna be happy with him because he only launched 30 features instead of 100 that year. So in that case, the goal set up from higher management to the product team and experimentation really collide, because product owner just wants to launch features, and with experimentation you're going to say like, no, 70% of those features make no
aren't
sense
good.
because they're
Mm,
inconclusive or are losing experiments, and you shouldn't release them. So you're still very dependent upon higher management. This is just one example, and the
mm.
culture and the strategy and the tooling and the budget, etc., to grow experimentation. But at least for what you can do, yeah, try to really align and yeah, get that feedback.
That's right. Because yeah, I agree that there are still challenges. But what's the common, like, what's the most difficult, most challenging like pushback that you've gotten so far in terms of like product owners, like, and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest pushback is a lot that output driven goals, mainly caused by culture and legacy. For instance, companies have been around for many years, have done the work in kind of the same way. That is really difficult. And how I've overcome them, that's again very different per client and very different per organization. And it doesn't always work. Then switch to another team and help that team first before spending more energy on that other team. And I think that's crucial to understand because just like I said, like we should use the same philosophy, same mindset in our organization, which we do on our website. It's also the same thing with what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes I read papers or articles, or videos or presentations like the 6 things to do to get to an experimentation culture. And this person is absolutely right. I'm really happy this person shares her or his ideas about the situation. And I'm sure it worked for them. But every situation is different. Every company is
That's
different.
true.
Every
Mm.
market is different. Every country is different. Every culture is different. So for me, like the 6 things to do to get to an experimentation culture is for me the same as the 6 magical conversion optimization tricks to triple your conversion rate overnight.
That's true. Yes. Mm.
Again, it's the same here. Of course, learn from best practices, see them, get
Mm.
inspired by them, but it doesn't necessarily have to work for your organization.
That's true. That's a good point. It is kind of like customized all the time because it depends on the person, depends on everyone that's working in what type of culture, like you've said. But
Yeah, it even really depends for each team. Like, for instance, one
I
client
agree.
now, I have 9. I'm in a center of excellence helping 9 product teams experiment. So I'm part of the
Oh,
center of
wow.
excellence there, coaching them the part of the center of excellence as well as the teams, helping them set new strategy, creating plans. And 2 teams that are very close together, work very close together. One has a product owner that came from an experiment-driven company, so that
Oh, wow.
team
Yeah.
is very easy to help and very easy to grow very quickly in maturity and experimentation. Whereas the other team that works really close with them, they have a product owner of 65 years old. And he's counting down to his retirement. And he has been a product owner 30 years. Um, there, it's
Are
really,
you
really
allowed to
hard.
say that? He might hear this one,
No,
but it's okay.
it's a wonderful person. I think it's
Yeah,
a very interesting
yeah.
person. I can learn a
Yeah.
lot from him because he has so
Mm.
much experience and so yeah, it's so fascinating to hear his whole story as being a
Story, yeah.
product owner for so long. So I learned a lot from him. But it's kind of hard to move him towards experimentation because he's never done
Mm.
that, and his managers also give him output driven goals. So he's open for the conversation. He's interested, but it's hard to change much harder to change such a team compared to a team with a product owner that just came from an experimentation driven company.
Yeah, that's true though. How do you start cultivating that? So, for example, you get a new client, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of like, okay, this person is kind of like that 65-year-old guy who doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have any experience in experimentation. Like, how would you, like, probably this is again like a best practice, question, but how would you start putting like, oh, we need to experiment that before we do the output? Like, where would you start?
Again, ask a lot of questions. Really, I think again, where does a great CRO specialist or consultant start? It's simply with asking questions. It's not
Yep.
teaching yet because yeah, if everyone's going to teach such a person, he's not motivated to learn a lot. Maybe he might be interested,
Mm.
but I will barely move the needle in that team towards experimentation maturity. So it is really with asking questions, understanding that person. Why does he do what he do? And then you can also hear that maybe it's the goals he gets from his boss. What are his interests? How can I help him? Um,
Mm.
but it's very difficult and challenging, and it might be better road to work from top down, get to know his manager, align with that person, or work with a team that's closely aligned with them, get really good results there, so the other team sees how it works and how it can help them with their goals. So it's like a nice puzzle. It's a fun puzzle. it's
Yeah.
it's a challenge, and sometimes it's
Have you
it's, it's
seen
very
it
hard.
like, like with your experience, like have you seen a certain person handling a team and then turn around to not like knowing anything about experimentation to like, okay, let's experiment things all the time?
Yeah, I've
Oh,
had
that's
clients where some were like someone said like CRO specialists make their own work, which I find a very funny comment. And after 2 years, he was also giving test ideas and helping with experimentation. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. That's already a win. I think, like
absolutely.
when
That's
you, yeah,
wonderful. That's so fun to see that yeah, you give people a new way of thinking, a new way of working, and they actually like it. And I think that's also I think what we can do with experimentation as well is to involve people. I think one of the wonderful things from experimentation is that every idea should be heard and every idea can be tested. Whether you're like a junior on your first day or a CEO, every idea can be tested. And I think that's a wonderful thing for experimentation as well to involve people, have the ideas being heard, test them, learn together. It makes for much funner and nice organizations.
that's true. And I agree. And I agree. It's not just like subjective solutions. It's more like, let's look at this and objectively data based, and you have more of ground when you're making decisions. Like I said, we suck at making decisions, and we do
Yeah,
need
and maybe
this
also when you start
hard
with
proof.
with the company, find those people that are enthusiastic, create a
I
community,
agree.
because that also again brings people together.
I agree. I
And from
agree.
there, you can help each other to grow and support other teams.
Now the question is like, okay, now that you've like mentioned this A/B testing results, right? How do you help different departments to make this ideas that are wins and not wins into reality? How do you help them? Okay, so on your department, I think this A/B testing insights, whether it's a win or a loss, would benefit you. How
Hmm.
do you help them integrate those insights into their department, and how they strategize things and how they prioritize things in their department?
Yeah. So one of the questions, of course, always ask is, what are you working on? What
Mm,
are the biggest customer problems you're working on? What are the biggest opportunities you're working on? And let me help you with experimentation to so we understand how to best work on these problems or opportunities. And that's when you start aligning your experiments with what they are working on. You start aligning your experiments with the business goals at that moment, with their OKRs if they have them. And that's when you can share those insights and share those results. And that makes it much more interesting for the team to implement your winners, but also
mm.
much more interesting for the team to listen to your insights and learnings, because they can now learn what works and what doesn't work, where in the customer journey related to that opportunity they are now working on as a team.
Do people get excited on heat maps first or the numbers? I feel
People
like
get
they get
excited.
excited.
Yeah. Now people get excited about the insights that they find interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, awesome. Anyway, any final thoughts on what we've talked about today, Ruben? And like I've said, like you always give out practical solutions, like on most of your talks and teachings. And yeah, any last minute
I think this to
advice?
sum
Yeah.
up is what we started with. Start using the philosophy and mindset in your organization. Start doing colleague research, start asking questions, and start aligning with their needs and motivations, just like you align with the needs and motivations of your digital users.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ruben. We're so delighted, and I'm so excited to have finally like this chat with you again. I'm a big fan, and thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun. This was very fun.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, this is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. If you'd like to connect with hundreds of experimenters from around the world, consider joining our Slack channel. You can find the link in the description. Now back to the episode.